the Grangemouth Flood Protection Scheme Primary STEM programme. This is our second year of running this, and so some of you may have taken part last year. We wanted to do a little training session just to make sure everyone was updated on, first of all, what the programme's all about, but also any changes we've made since the last time we ran the programme. So I'll start by giving you a bit of information about what the Grangemouth Flood Protection Scheme itself is. So it's the largest flood protection scheme in Scotland, and it's protecting the communities of Grangemouth, Hole Flats, Glensborough, Langleys, Carnshaw, Stirling Road, and Camlin from extreme flooding events. These are areas that tend to have flooding. There's various strategies that are going to be employed, but some of them flood defence walls, floodgates, embankments, etc. So there's a lot to understand in terms of flood protection strategies. And that's part of what we harness as part of the STEM programme, is making young people in the area aware of different flood protection strategies that are in place and how they can affect flooding and prevent flooding, protect from flooding. Construction is expected to commence in 2025 and finish in 2034, and Falkirk Council are leading the scheme. And I'm from Jacobs, which is a company that's consulting on the scheme. If you want more information, I've got the website link here, and I'll share the slides after the session as well. This is a map of the area to show the area that the scheme is covering. I know that some of the schools that are taking part are from slightly out with this area. We have opened up the programme, the primary STEM programme, to schools within Falkirk Council. We are also primarily focusing on schools specifically within the scheme area. So if you're from outside, it's great to have you on board. And if you're within the scheme area, it's especially relevant to you because you're going to be, your pupils will be affected by what's going on in this programme. So the programme itself, this is aimed at level 2. And obviously level 2 encompasses primary 5 as well, but we're actually looking to focus on primary 6 and 7, purely because there's a competition as part of this, and the learning is quite high level because they're learning about flood protection strategies, and there's quite a lot of engineering involved. And so to make sure the pupils are kind of working at the same level, we'd encourage you to focus on primary 6 and primary 7. However, if there are primary 5s that want to take part, let me know and we can discuss it. So the topics we're covering are why we need flood protection, what job roles are involved in a flood protection project, what solutions are available, so that's flood walls, embankments, etc., and the costs and benefits of each, so kind of pros and cons of why you might use that solution. And then what solution would the pupils select and why? Oh, sorry, we've got 4 lessons, including a video for the judging ceremony. So last year, what we did was first of all, the pupils were asked to create a whole scheme. So they weren't asked to select one protection strategy, they were asked to research them all and then devise a whole scheme to protect an area, a map area. And now what we've done is, based on feedback, we've simplified the expectations this year. And what we're looking for is just for pupils to research all the different strategies available to them, select one, and then explain where they would place that strategy on a map and explain how they're going to integrate that strategy with the local community and make sure it kind of, you can consider things like how it's going to look, how you're going to blend it in with the local environment, how you're going to consider any environmental factors like wildlife. And you can go into as much detail as possible. The idea being that you're showing us that you've researched and thoroughly thought about your solution. There's no necessarily right answer. As long as people can justify their thinking and explain what the solution they've come up with, that's what we're looking for. The video came out of last year. Again, last year we asked that pupils submit their answers, the solutions via Teams, and they'd have a Teams call where judges would watch and they would ask questions. What we found was that we were asked by one school if they could actually submit, just because of the timing of when the submissions were due, could they submit a video, a pre-recorded video to the judges? And actually, we said that was fine, but we also wanted to open that up to everybody else because we wanted to make sure it was a level playing field. And what we found is that actually everybody would prefer to do that. So this year we've just gone with that strategy, that there's a pre-recorded video that can be submitted to the judges. I will caveat that by saying that whilst we got some excellent videos last year, and there was a lot of very detailed kind of information given and editing and PowerPoints and all sorts of stuff, which was wonderful. But that's not necessary. So if you want to do that, great. And if it gives you an extra element of ITC learning, then excellent, and go for it. That sounds like a really good way of fitting it in with your coursework. But there's no obligation to do that. What we're looking for here is we're looking to see that the pupils have learned about the above topic. So have they learned about flood protection? Have they learned about some strategies that are available? Are they able to explain those strategies and suggest a solution and explain why that solution is the most appropriate one? So that's what the judges are looking for. We do share the judging categories and the judging, they use a sort of tabular system, and we share that with you so you can see what the judges are looking for. And what you'll find is that the video editing is not in there at all. We want to make sure it's clear what the pupils are saying, so they can show us in whichever way they do their solution. That has to be clear, but the actual editing the video doesn't have to be anything complicated. The timeline is flexible and the lesson structure is designed to suit teacher requirements. So what that means is resources come out on the 9th of January when term starts, and on 31st of March is when the submissions are due. You can choose how you use that time. So you might want to make the project last the whole term and really, look into it in great detail. You might want to just do it in a week, kind of a condensed version. It's entirely up to you. As long as the submissions come in on the 31st, then that's fine by us. And the resources, as I say, are available from the beginning of January. But if you don't start straight away, that's totally fine. This is the teacher training that we're providing. And additionally, this year, what we're providing is a live model. So I'll talk about that in a wee minute and show you an example of what that looks like. The resources are provided online, so they're provided on the Grangemouth Flood Protection Scheme website, so they can be accessed easily by everybody, both at home and in the school building. And another resource that I want to be aware of is the Falkirk Community Trust STEM Heritage Boxes. These came out last year, actually, at the same time as we launched our resources, and we found there was a little bit of confusion about which was which. And these STEM Heritage Boxes, actually, now that we've kind of looked at them and we've researched the resources, they're an excellent resource and they feed very well into what we're doing. So what these resources look at is a little bit of the flooding in general, the history of flooding in the area, and they feed nicely into what we're looking at. I'll show you an example later on. The curriculum for excellence experience and outcomes are also referenced, so you have them for planning documents. And finally, last but not least, I've got lots of people waiting in the lobby. Let me just let people in. Unless anybody else is able to do that, I can't quite see how to do that. Barbara, are you able to let people into the meeting? I don't know if you can do that, or if... There we go, Erin. Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm just sharing a PowerPoint. So we are recording the session, so you can have your cameras on or off. But if the bit that you missed out on the beginning of the call, feel free to have a look at that, to go back and have a wee look. And I'm also will share these slides as well, so you have all this information. So it's finally on the last but not least, we have got prizes available. So there's a £100 Amazon voucher. Now, the voucher is for the winning group, but the class of the winning group is given the voucher and they can choose what to spend that on. And I'll give you a nice example at the end of what a class chose to spend their voucher on. And there's a £50 Amazon voucher for the highly commended groups as well. The classes, the highly commended groups. Places are limited, and as I say, we are ideally focusing on schools within the scheme. So if you are within the scheme, you will be given a place in this if you want to take part, and schools out with will be able to take part up to a limited number. And so the applications are due on Friday, the 16th of December. I've got a link to the form in the slides, so I'll share them with you afterwards, and it's also in all the communications emails you may have been sent so far. So, as I was explaining, this is a very flexible topic. Resources are available at the beginning of term in January and the submissions are due in the 31st of March, but how you do that and the way in which you divide up these resources and teach them is entirely up to you. You know both your pupils and what else you're learning about in school and how this will fit in with that. So we want to make it flexible, and as long as the submissions are there and they meet the judging criteria, that's all that we're looking for. So we have got lessons, and they're called lessons purely to use terminology that's recognised in schools, but they don't have to take place over one lesson. They can take place over whatever period of time you have. So for example, lesson 1, this is where pupils look at what job roles are involved, why we need flooding, etc. And that's one good place you can link in with the Falkirk, the flood resources, the STEM box that we'll look at in a bit more detail later on. And then that lesson can last 1 hour, or it could last much longer than that. It's entirely up to you. We don't mind how long it lasts, but as long as by the end of that period of time, pupils have got their job roles assigned, they understand a bit more about flooding and why we need flood protection, that would be a good use of that time. Similarly, lesson 2, what they're going to be doing is researching different flood solutions that are available. Now, I say researching, you can choose to go down that route if that's what you'd like to do, is ask the pupils to research, and we do provide documents that will help them with that, so they have a sort of suggested start point for the websites they might want to look at. But we also provide lots of detailed information that you can just give the pupils, and you can go through it with them. There's differentiated resources, so you can give some of them ones with missing words, some of the whole missing sentences where they might have to go and research. And what we're also providing is a PowerPoint, which can either be used as an assessment tool, where it says identify the flood protection scheme from the pros and cons of it, or else you can use it as a research document. So you'll know more when you see the resources themselves, but basically these resources are to kind of scaffold the learning of the pupils in whatever way you see most appropriate. And again, the duration is flexible. So if you have limited time, they'll obviously do less research, and that's okay. You can give them more of the information. It's up to you. It's their solutions and their understanding of it that we're looking for. So the last part, the last lesson 3, we're calling it, the last part of the topic is where pupils create their solution in their group, each performing the job role that they've been given. So whether that's an engineer or a project manager, etc. They have to show that they are fulfilling these job roles, and that is one of the judges' criteria. Want to make sure that everyone's taking part and everyone's fulfilling the job role in question, because part of what they want them to get from this is an understanding of what jobs are available within STEM schemes, and specifically within flood protection schemes. So in this part of the programme, what they'll be doing is coming up with a solution and basically understanding why they decided on that particular flood protection measure. So why have they gone with a flood wall, and showing where on the map they're going to put it, and explaining why they've chosen that location as well. So there's a bit to do with, right, I want to put a flood wall here, and I know it'll work because this location is a sensible place for a flood wall, and here's how I'm going to blend it in with the local environment, explaining all of that from their different perspectives. And then finally, the judging lesson. The judging itself is the video that they create. And as I said, the videos themselves do not have to be high-tech, fancy, all singing, all dancing videos. If that works with your curriculum and what you're doing at the time, that is excellent, and we'd love to see that, but that is not a requirement. It's not one of the judging criteria. All we're looking to see is that they've come up with these solutions and they're able to explain them well, explain the roles that they took part in terms of their group, and explain why their thinking was what it was. So we know that we understand where they're coming from with these things. Okay, so here's an example of the resource, or one of the resources. So what we have to do is match the flood protection solution to the picture. So we've got 3 images here. Does anybody want to hazard a guess as to which flood protection solution this first one is, picture number 1? Having a look at them. So is it a flood wall, a flood embankment, a vehicle or pedestrian floodgate, flood storage area, flood reef channel, and I'm going to move this little image so I can see the last one, or a culvert? Anyone? Barbara might know the answer to this already, so I'll see if maybe she knows.
Is it a culvert?
Why are you thinking it's a culvert, Barbara? What's your thinking behind
Because I don't know what a culvert is, and the other ones don't sound like that.
Good guess. I think you are right. Let's see. Oh, my slides will go forward. Yes. Also, I want to give you the other answer. It was a culvert, and the second one was a flood wall, as you now know. So you can see actually the wall aspect here. But this is, as I say, this part of the resource can be used either as an assessment tool. So you can say, well, they've gone and researched these solutions, and they should be able to identify these now that they've researched them. Or it could be used as something that teaches them about this. So you could discuss, right, this is an image of a culvert. This is what it's called. Let's look at why this is, what culvert is, and find out a bit more detail about that. So you could use it to introduce the topic as well. And the final one is a flood embankment. So we can see the slight difference. These, I mean, I'm not an engineer, and some of these things can be quite subtle. So it is interesting to kind of get into detail about this and teach them about what the differences are, because they won't get this learning from other places. So this again is another way of identifying them. We have the pictures, and they have to match up which one they are. So you can either, I think this one is slightly more challenging in that the pupils have to know what the solutions are and then identify them, as opposed to having all the words written out in front of them. This is another part of the PowerPoint as well that we give. Again, this is just one resource of the pack, but the idea is that you'd have the benefits and the issues, or the kind of drawbacks necessarily, of each one of these solutions, and they have to identify, based on the benefits and the issues, which solution you're talking about. So the benefits of this one is it doesn't require much space, can be made to look attractive, so it can be stone or brick clad, can be removable, but that's slightly more expensive. And then the issues are it doesn't allow human or animal passage over it, has a shorter design life because materials need replacing, and they need to be installed manually before a flood. So does anyone want to have a guess about which one we're talking about here? You can look for clues, and actually this could be quite a good close reading exercise for pupils as well, because they could be looking to identify based on the wording, the subtle wording of it. Okay, if no volunteers, I'll give you the answer. So it's a flood wall, which we may have got from stone or brick clad, etc. But if pupils have researched this, they should be able to identify that. And if they haven't, this will give them the information they need to start identifying which flood protection solution is which, and what the pros and cons of each one are. It's up to you how you use it. So I'll go on to the rest of them. That's a good example of that. So the resources, other resources look like this. They're flexible training plan, date to be decided because that was still up in the air until last week. Flexible lesson plans. So I've explained they're differentiated for your pupils, but also differentiated in terms of the time you have available. So whilst we do provide a PowerPoint to accompany the lesson plans, and the lesson plans do have detail in them, there's absolutely no obligation to follow this step by step. We just want to scaffold everything so you have the support you need to deliver this, but you can deliver it in whichever way suits you, timing wise, and your pupils level. It is up to you, but we want to provide you with enough resources that you feel equipped to teach this lesson. As part of that, I'll make you aware of the research pack. So we've got videos by a flood engineer who's involved in the project, is Adele, one of our flooding engineers. And we've got differentiated information sheets, which I've discussed before. There's that quiz PowerPoint, which I just showed you there, and then the video submissions. We've got there's examples of video submissions from pupils. So based on the feedback of last year, here's some of the changes we've made. So I know some of you did this last year, as I said. I've explained that we streamlined the format to make them more easier to follow and more adaptable. So they're very kind of bullet pointed as opposed to lots of text, to show that this is a flexible thing. And as long as you cover some of this learning and by the end of it, they're able to explain what the solution is, then that's what we're looking for. So we've streamlined the whole lesson plan. We've simplified the task, as I explained. So rather than looking for a flood protection strategy from each group, we're now looking for them to just pick one flood intervention. So whether it's a flood wall or an embankment or a culvert, they can choose what they're going to use and explain where on the map that we provide they're going to use that resource. Resources are accessed online, as I said. Unified submission format. So last year we said it could be pre-recorded, could be videoed. Everyone chose to do a video, so we've just gone with that this year. This is the CPD session, and we also have a frequently asked questions document, which is based on all the questions that came out of last year. We've kept the prizes, so we've kept the £100 and the £50 Amazon vouchers, and we've also included this optional visit for an interactive model, which demonstrates flooding and flood walls. Now, this model is actually specifically available to schools within the flood protection scheme. So ideally we want to target those schools with this option of a model because it is very relevant to the pupils in that school. This is an outdoor activity, so there will be an element of weather dependency. But if you have an outdoor classroom, and we can bring a, can't think of the word, we can bring a tent-like structure, so we can keep dry, but there is water involved, so we do want to be outdoors for doing this. But it's a nice wee interactive activity that we have done at science festivals within the local area. So these are the Falkirk heritage boxes, which I explained earlier, that link in with the topic. So they were created separately from us, and we didn't create these, but they are available in every school. They were given out to every school in Falkirk. So we feel like it's a really useful resource that's already in your schools and can be used as part of this. And it feeds in really well with how this topic works, ideally with the first part of the lesson. So these boxes cover what flooding is and why it happens, Falkirk floods in the past and present, why people choose to live near the water, and also has an introduction to civil engineering and some of the hard flood defences, that's flood walls, etc. So it's a good lead into the rest of the topic. And so if you have got time and you do want to make this into a bigger topic that takes up more of your term, I would recommend having a look at these resources. If the box is no longer in your school and you don't know where it is, you can access the resources online as well. So there's a link here for the resources. And they are great resources, and they will feed in really well with what we're doing. And then you can draw on from that and you can go on to the next part where they actually come up with their own solution and explain what the solution is. So last year we had several schools take part, Carnshire Primary School, Byres Primary, etc., all the ones in green. And this year we're offering it to all schools in the council area. We've got 12 places available, but schools in the scheme area will be prioritised. So there are 12 schools within the scheme area, and if every one of them takes up the offer, then that'll be the 12 places. But there's likely to be some flexibility. So if you're out with the scheme area, don't worry, there's very likely to be a place available for you. And up to 7 areas in the scheme area can also access this flood protection model that I'm going to tell you about. We're also launching a secondary school programme in the spring of 2023. So that's something to keep an eye out for. And so pupils will be continuing the learning in terms of this when they get to secondary school. So key dates, sign up is Friday the 16th of December. As I say, the resources get launched on Monday the 9th of January. So you can begin working on your resources anytime from then, but there's no obligation to begin right at that point. With the dates for the flood model visits, you can select when you sign up on the form, there's dates you can select from to choose when the flood model comes to visit you, and the dates are listed there. Again, this is for schools in the scheme area, and the submission date is the 31st of March. So that's really the key date to keep in mind, is the as long as your submissions are in by then, you can be flexible how you deliver this. Finally, I want to tell you about Max the goldfish. So there was a school who came as a highly commended school within the scheme last year, and what they chose to do was spend their £50 Amazon voucher as a class on Max, not Max himself, or actually herself. She was a female goldfish. They found that out afterwards, but they chose to get the tank and all the resources that you can see there to keep the goldfish. It gave them a research project. They actually looked into what was the best solution for this, and they chose the tank and they chose all the bits and pieces for it, and they rescued Max because Max had been bullying his tank mate. So they rescued her and placed her into this tank, and then they actually found she laid lots of eggs, so they had the life cycle to look at as well. So I thought this is a lovely story because it was a really nice way to use the money, and it was the whole class came together and chose this is how they're going to use it. And of course with flooding it's very appropriate. So any questions either for now, or if you have any questions that occur to you, then feel free to contact me via my email address. Obviously, I will be the one sending you this, so you probably have it anyway, but it's listed there for you just in case. Okay. Okay, if there's no questions, we can finish up there. But thank you so much for your time. The sign up link will be on the PowerPoint that I share. So do confirm your place as soon as possible so we know who's taking part. As I say, you don't have to get started straight away, but as long as submissions are in for the 31st of March, we know who to expect, and we also know that we can allocate judges accordingly. Okay.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, folks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.